With Jerusalem falling to Saladin, who controlled the Ayyubid Empire, the Europeans had enough. This time, King Richard I of England, King Philip II of France, and Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I Barbarossa joined to plan another adventure to the Holy Land. In Germany, Cardinal Henry of Marseille preached before Frederick and the people of Strasbourg. Frederick met with Philip at Christmas, but Philip could not join the crusade because he was fighting with King Henry II of England. Frederick began the preparations, which took a full year, so he put a small tax on the German Jews to fund the crusade. However, Frederick actually made sure to protect the Jews from harassment. However, in January 1188, a mob invaded the Jewish quarter of Mainz, so the rabbis met with the emperor and he made sure no Jew was ever killed again on his watch. Frederick then made sure he was allowed to Hungary, the Seljuks and the Romans by sending nobles to negotiate. Frederick also let Saladin know he had cut off the alliance and sent him an ultimatum, basically saying give the cross back to the Holy Sepulchre. Frederick got word back that the Hungarians and the Seljuks would let him through, but the Romans said, "Hey Frederick, promise that you won't ruin our land." "Okay, fine." "It's Godfrey." "No, not that one." "Hey, I think you should actually sail to the Holy Land instead of by land." "No thanks, dude." But lots of Germans went to Sicily to get boats from William II. Frederick set out on the 11th of May 1189, numbering 20,000 men or more. He got an additional 2,000 from Geza, the Prince of Hungary. The Crusaders were escorted to Esztergom, met the king Bela III, and got loads of supplies. When Frederick reached Roman land, he informed Emperor Isaac II that he had entered Roman territory. But the envoys that Frederick sent found Constantinople empty. It turns out Isaac was putting down a rebellion. Despite marching through Serbia and having an alliance request with Bulgaria, Frederick did not want to get involved in the Balkan politics. He arrived in Sofia, which was practically abandoned, and when seeing the Germans at the Gate of Trajan, the Romans fled. The Romans kept fleeing as the Germans approached. Fred got a letter from Isaac, accusing him of many things, but also putting his son on the throne of Constantinople. Frederick had enough, burning the land and seizing Philippopolis and its supplies. He attacked the Roman army, taking Berea. What was meant to be a crusade against the Muslims had now become something of an invasion. Isaac sent Cambyses to ambush the Crusader supplies, but then they accidentally met at Prusenos and Frederick pushed the Romans back to Ohrid. He marched on into Seljuk land and instead of promised security was attacked by the Turks. Frederick, after all these attacks, decided to replenish his stock of animals and food by taking Iconium, the Seljuk capital. At last the city fell on the 18th of May 1190. However, while crossing the Salif River, Frederick's horse slipped, slamming Frederick into the rocks, who then proceeded to drown to death. Much of the German army began the march home to prepare for the imperial election. Frederick's son, before they left, went to Tyre to bury his father's bones. While Jerusalem was not captured from Saladin, they did capture the Seljuk capital and killed over 9,000 Turks. The Germans finally returned home to prepare to elect the new emperor. The English, however, had sent a ship during Lent in 1188 to Alvor, not in the Holy Land but in the Almohad Caliphate in the Iberian Peninsula. Another fleet left Germany in April and arrived in Lisbon by July. It was recruited by Sancho I of Portugal to take Silves from the Muslims. King Henry II of England and Philip II of France agreed not to fight each other so they could focus on the crusade. Then King Henry II died, so his son Richard began the fundraising for the crusade. Richard met with Philip and agreed to meet again in Sicily. Over in Sicily, King William II had just died and was replaced by Tancred, who just so happened to have imprisoned Richard's sister. Philip left and arrived at Acre. Over in the Holy Land, the leader of Jerusalem, King Guy, who had just come out of prison, began the pushback against Saladin in Acre. Even with the French forces, they couldn't defeat him. The problem was King Guy's wife Sibylla died along with her kids. The problem was that Guy was only king by his wife's right, as it was Sibylla's family that descended from Baldwin. Richard left Sicily a little later and ended up in a storm where he lost loads of treasure. It turned out the ruler of Cyprus, also called Isaac, took the treasure, so Richard invaded the island. At Limassol, Richard met King Guy, and they both came back to Acre to set up the attack. However, in struggle for who would be the next king of Jerusalem, Philip left the Holy Land in August, also because he was ill. Richard asked Saladin to meet him in person, which he refused, so he sent gifts instead. Richard began the march to Jaffa, but was blocked by the Ayyubid army at Arsuf. Richard ordered a counterattack, which succeeded as he set up Jaffa as his headquarters. Negotiations began, and in Jerusalem, Muslim spirit was really low. The king of Jerusalem, which by the way didn't even include Jerusalem anymore, Guy lost the vote. Richard felt bad, so he gave Guy Cyprus. Richard took Darum on the borders of Egypt. Saladin launched a surprise attack on Jaffa, but his army lost it, really angry after what happened at Acre. Saladin even won Richard to pretend to hide until the Muslim army calmed down. Nonetheless, Richard took back Jaffa and Saladin decided it was time to end the fighting. On the 2nd of September 1192, Saladin and Richard agreed that Jerusalem would stay in Muslim control, but unarmed Christians and traders could visit the city. Asalon was returned to Saladin and Richard left the Holy Land in October. The Third Crusade, a stalemate. Neither side was really happy with how it went. The Christians didn't take Jerusalem, the Muslims didn't push the Christians out of Palestine. Saladin died in 1193 and his successor would split his empire up. Richard returned home to England and died in 1199. Though Richard did not take Jerusalem, there was now a wealthy Christian kingdom centered on Acre.